it's just good to not be attached to our things. Like, you come into this world with nothing, you leave it with nothing. So it's like, we should teach this to our children of the importance of, again, people. And it doesn't mean that I'm sure that sounds really like haughty. And it's like, of course, she's been living this way for a long time. But I do think that our children are far more capable than we think.
You're listening to the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. It's just the thing we all said we needed when we first had kids. Remember that feeling? Oh, where's the handbook for this? Kids are messy and they come with a lot of stuff. Today's guest, Diane Boden, is going to talk a little bit about how we manage that stuff, but not only the stuff, but the schedules of our lives and even the thoughts and goals of our lives. I'm your host, Katie Kimball from Kids Cook Real Food, and I've brought together experts in the fields of health, parenting, nutrition, and more to help you, parents who truly want to raise healthy, independent kids, get the information you need. Parenting is the toughest and the most rewarding job in the world. Thank you for joining me to consult this Healthy Parenting Handbook, your guide to raising kids intentionally. And intentional is the perfect word to introduce my guest, Diane Boden, because although she has often been known as the minimalist mom, she is changing that branding to a clear intention, which, as you'll hear in this wonderful interview, is just perfect for her mindset. Diane Boden is the voice behind the top-rated podcast, Minimalist Moms, again, rebranded to a Clear Intention podcast in early 2025. Through her show, Diane shares her personal experiences and interviews inspiring guests who offer insights and tips on living a fulfilling life with less. Diane's expertise and message have been sought out by various other podcasts, including The Spillover with Alex Clark, 1,000 Hours Outside, The Mom Hour, and more. In addition to her successful podcast, Diane also authored a book, Minimalist Moms, Living and Parenting with Simplicity, released in March 2021. Her words and advice have impacted countless individuals and families looking to simplify their lives and find more meaning in the things that matter most. Diane lives in Ohio with her husband and 3 children, and this is just a fun, wholesome, uplifting interview. Can't wait for you to hear it. Well, thank you for being here, Diane. In this world of over-consumerism, we really need voices saying less.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to talk to you today. I feel like we have been trying to do this for so many months. So I'm so glad to finally, we're making this happen. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, minimalism and perfectionism are 2 completely different things, as is reality, right?
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get this spark of minimalism? And right now, what are your kids' current ages?
Yeah, so my kids' current ages, I have my oldest is a girl, Charlotte, she's 10. And then I have Martin, he is 7. And then my youngest is Benjamin, he's 5. And you and I were talking beforehand, I homeschool my oldest. My youngest is in preschool, and then my middle child is in public school. So I kind of have my feet in many different positions, I guess. I'm running around the town, which is luckily it's a small town, but doing many different things, which minimalism has absolutely helped it so that I can do that and juggle the various roles that I'm doing. But you asked about that spark of minimalism. And I kind of always wonder if I would have gotten here in my 30s if I hadn't in my 20s. I think the answer is yes. But I did have an initial moment where my husband and I were in my parents' basement and we had been looking for something. And he looked at me and said, look at all of these things that are now in boxes that were once your dad's hard-earned working hours. And at that point in time, I mean, I was super young, but I really didn't have anything to show for how hard I'd been working. At that point, I didn't really bring anything into the marriage but debt. But I did have a closet full of clothes and never really wore the same thing more than once, or didn't at least like to be seen in the same environment in the same outfit more than once. So all that to say, it kind of just struck me to say, what am I working towards? And not to throw my dad under the bus. I think for him, it was more so at that point, why are you holding on to these things and allowing this to be an inventory that you have to maintain? But yeah, I just really got the ball rolling. And then I don't even know if it was necessarily minimalism, but it was just like, I'd rather prioritize people and experiences over the things, which it seemed very countercultural, and it still continues to be. I think some people are jumping on board, but yeah, that was my spark light bulb moment.
You know, watching our parents go through their decades and go through their sort of phases of life, I feel like I too am making this list, things I want to do and don't want to do when I'm a senior citizen. So, that's the best way to learn is watching other people. It's interesting that you just said, I don't know if it was minimalism exactly, just prioritizing people and experiences over things, which is beautiful. However, you've since adopted the nomenclature of minimalism. Did that shift at all? Or is that just like the best term to describe what you mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, and this has been an evolution. I'm 36 now, and we had that conversation probably when I was 23, 24. So it has been an evolution to say it's not just about the tangible things that I'm minimizing. I'm intentionally trying to structure my relationships, my calendar, what I'm saying yes to. It really has woven its way throughout every facet of my life, in parenting and homeschooling. But all that to say, I do think that minimalism is a tool to get rid of what is superfluous in your life that is not necessity. When you really are honest with yourself about the things that you love and really need, I think you could probably get rid of about a third of your things at least. And it's interesting because I know Marie Kondo was really popular. I don't even remember when she became popular, maybe 2017, 2018. But she always says, does it spark joy in your life? And that it was always something to me. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I own a hammer. It doesn't really spark joy, but I need it. And I mean, the same can be said probably for all my husband's tools, certain things in the kitchen. So yeah, I think it really is. I love to live by the rule, a place for everything. Everything has a place. And so when something is out of place, it's like, well, if it doesn't have a home here, why do we still have it? So it's more just being honest and rational with yourself. I think that minimalism has kind of evolved into this, again, just life of intention, which I think this will probably go live after Minimalist Moms is no more. I don't even know if you and I, Katie, have talked about that, but Minimalist Moms is being rebranded, or by this time it will have been rebranded to Clear Intentions. And I think that that was a natural evolution for me to say, it's less about like a tool of aesthetic and more of a way of life. And that way of life is intentionality.
That is beautiful because, and I kind of realized that about you, that it's not all about the things, which minimalism definitely focuses on the physical objects. And I love that you see it in light of schedules, sleep, goals, experiences. So tell us how you apply some of the minimalist principles to something other than shopping and decluttering, which is what everyone else does.
Yeah, so there's a few things. And it's funny, I interviewed my husband for the first time for the podcast. And it was just curious. I'm like, what is he going to say? I'm excited to pick his brain. But he was talking about how even in teaching, he's a teacher. He was like, I try to do the most with the least. He was way more articulate than I am. But he was just saying, like, you can get a lot more done if you're not doing all the fancy bells and whistles. And I maybe there is room for that. I probably have to really fully think that through. But oftentimes it's like we just go back to simplistic ways of living, ways of being. If you think about your community, the relationships, there's, I don't remember what researcher, but he was talking about people that you have contact with. And really, we only have, I think he said room for 110 connections. And that means your dentist. That means the man at the post office. That means truly everyone you're touching base with. And that gets, when you start to assess what that looks like in your own life, it's like, wow, I really don't have space for these superficial relationships. Or one of the things that I did, I tiered my friends, TIER. People are always like, oh my gosh, this woman's probably a jerk. But what I had to do is I noticed that I wasn't being as good of a friend to people anymore, because it was like, I can't have 2-3 children and also invest in all these relationships in the way that I would love to. And friendships can be seasonal, but really when I started putting more emphasis on those people that I wanted to see on the regular, I became a better friend and was also shrinking my social circle. So yeah, it comes down to relationships. Again, with schooling, we have one curriculum. We're not trying to do too much with homeschool. To me, juggling, again, all the things that I'm doing, if I were trying to put pressure on myself to do a lot of prep or a lot more than, again, seems necessary, I think I'd be a crazy person.
You talk about minimalism as applied to goals. How would you tell, especially moms? Because gosh, everyone out there is saying, set these health goals, set these parenting goals, set these sleep goals, set these academic goals. Like, how do you pare that down?
Yes. So for me, I like to tell my listeners or just people in my life, what's helpful is to write things down. Maybe I'm just a visual learner, but it's good to see it on paper because it can be scattered in your brain. And so putting it pen to paper, to me, there's just a process and a method there. all that to say, you write down your values, and then you write down what you've been prioritizing, and then you assess what has, I guess, been in alignment and what has not been. So once you do that initial assessment, then you can say, okay, these are some small goals that I might have. And I always say, if you're not like completely honest and rational with yourself, you're probably not going to be very sustainable in your habit change. People talk about SMART goals. Sure. I think that for someone like me, creating a habit of walking, I had been talking about this for months and months. I used to be in great habits, and then I fell out of it. And my husband was like, why don't you just go right now? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I should go right now. You're like, you're here, you're able to watch the kids. If I'm not willing to say what I want to do, like to do it in that moment, one step, one tiny step, am I really going to do it tomorrow? And I really struggled, with binge eating for a while there. And it was always Last Supper mentality of saying, tomorrow or Monday, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop it then. I'm just going to get it all in now. I'm going to eat this half of a cake because tomorrow I'll be better. And what I realized was that, one, I was never, this is just side note, I was never looking to fill a physical like hunger. It was more of an emotional void or tiredness that I was trying to fill with that eating. But also, it was never going to be enough to eat everything in my house again because of that void. But also, when I restricted and when I made it unsustainable of saying, like, tomorrow I'm never going to eat cake again, or at least not for this foreseeable future, it was too much. I was biting off too much. I wasn't being honest with myself because I love cake. And so it was like, no, you can have a slice of cake. And then if you're hungry later for it, you can have more. But right now, you just need a slice of cake because you don't need to deprive yourself. So I think with any type of goal, just not biting off more than we can handle. With running, it's like, oh, I'm going to run a 5K. And honestly, even like couch to 5K was too much for me at that time. It's like, no, I'm just going to develop a walking habit. Going to bed a few minutes earlier, but I've had sustainability with my habits because it's like, settle in. Like, you have the rest of your life to change your habits. So don't try and overhaul. Don't wait till tomorrow. Like, do it in the here and now.
And what's interesting is that you're shifting even the words you're using from minimalism to intentional or intentionality. And that's really what I'm hearing you say. Minimalism isn't like, let's set one goal and do that goal. You know, that's not what you told us. You said set a reasonable goal, set goals that you can keep. And at the same time as you have the rest of your life to accomplish goals, also, you need to be motivated enough to do them right now, or you're probably not going to, prioritize it next week. So it's really all this balance. Like, I'm kind of picturing you on this balance board, where you're always sort of moving, even when it's quote balanced, you're never still. And that's okay. You're always figuring it out.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you brought it back to decluttering. That's kind of what I'm here to talk about today. Yes. When you are trying to take on your entire home or your entire closet, to me, it's like, start with the slow, small wins, your nightstand, the entryway, the flat surfaces in the kitchen. Build that momentum, feel the success, celebrate that, move through your home. Don't start with the sentimental items. Don't start with someone that's passed and their clothes and all of that stuff is so hard. You'll get to it. And again, once you have the momentum and you see that things are just things and that they're representations of memories, they're not the memories itself, you can more easily move through the harder things in your home.
That is an excellent tip, really. And it's all about goals too, like not biting off more than you can chew, because I'm picturing my nightstand and that is easy. Whereas, certain cupboards that you haven't seen in a while, those are daunting and we don't want to touch those. And you're a mom of 3, I'm a mom of 4. Having kids, I feel like, comes with so much stuff. And it's not in the cupboards, it's out, it's everywhere. How do you pursue minimalism with kids?
So for people that are watching, or I'll just describe, behind me, there are these shelves that you mentioned are empty before we got on the call. This is actually where I do homeschooling. And in these cabinets, I do have just a little bit of my homeschooling stuff. But again, I think it's like, I don't need all of the things because then again, it's just something, it's inventory you have to manage. And we're moms doing so many different things. And then if we're trying to take care of ourselves on top of it, it's like, I can't manage all the inventory. So let's lessen the load. So I think with kids, it's been really helpful for me to have visual boundaries in their room of, hey, you can fill this space But once it's filled, we're going to start to get rid of some things. I like to do that before birthdays, a little bit in the spring, maybe before Christmas. And you can go through and say, like, this has been gently used and we can pass this on now. But again, helping them. I'm a strong Christian, and I believe that it is a discipline that we can teach our children not to be so attached to the things too. So, I mean, if you're coming at from that perspective, even regardless as if you're someone that doesn't have a faith background, it is just good to not be attached to our things. Like, you come into this world with nothing, you leave it with nothing. So it's like, we should teach this to our children of the importance of, again, people. And it doesn't mean that I'm sure that sounds really like haughty. And it's like, of course, she's been living this way for a long time. But I do think that our children are far more capable than we think. And I think with the little ones, yeah, I've definitely gotten rid of things that my 5-year-old, it's like, you no longer play with this. And you can kind of put it in like a limbo of sorts, like a middle ground where if they ask for it in a certain amount of time, sure, bring it back out. But more often than not, it's like out of sight, out of mind. And then I love to tell my daughter, if everything is your favorite, nothing is your favorite. And so it's like, you can't have everything be your favorite, because then it's not your favorite. It's just something you really like. And we know that as adults, if I have to get rid of sweaters and I have these 3 sweaters and it's like, which one? I know which one is the one that I reach for. It's not the one I'm currently wearing, actually. But we kind of just have to be more, we just have to face truth more often. And I think with decluttering in our things, we have such an abundance of things. People really have never had as many things as we do now in our society. And I do think it's kind of like the cell phone. It's like, oh, how do we manage this now? We have all this access to people and information, and it's gotten overwhelming and we don't know how to stop. And I think people are addressing it, like Jonathan Haidt, Joey Odom, Aaron Lochner, like, people are doing a good job. We're trying to course correct, but I think that we need more voices speaking into, again, not just minimalism, but like our things. It's like, yeah, how do we manage all this crap? Like, we're so rich and well off, more so than most of the world. And it's like, we never were supposed to maybe have this much. So that's just like another conversation in general.
Mm-hmm. I love how your voice got a little quieter. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but maybe we're never meant to have this much stuff. I'm like, oh, I want to put that. Like, that's the meme. Like, maybe we were never meant to have. It's so true, though. I tell my kids, people over screens, when they're, do you want to go play with a friend? Oh, I want to play with my tablet, mom. Oh, people over screens. But people over things is another great bumper sticker. If anyone still makes bumper stickers, now it's all screen-based stuff. But it's so true. And passing this on to our kids is, I think, an important piece of parenting, because when our things are stressing us out and taking our bandwidth, right, we want better for our kids. We want them to not have quite so much pull on their attention. Well, I started online way back in 2009 and talking about stewardship in the kitchen and being good stewards of our health and good stewards of our budget and our time. And it feels like this idea of minimalism, but especially living with intention, fits that idea of how we steward our resources or our gifts from God. And I'd love you to just explore that a little bit.
So I think it comes, like, a lot of stewardship, I guess, in relation to religion, would be, don't be frivolous, don't be impulsive, compulsive. And so I think, honestly, that moment in the basement, I feel like I always tell that story and I wrote about it, but I never talk about what happened and what I started changing to not have those boxes in my basement. I had to stay out of the mall. I had to stay out of stores. Like, it felt like an addict at that point in time. It was like, I just have to remove myself from this compulsion, because I don't know, I've set myself up for this right now and it's too new and too shiny. And when you start, again, removing yourself from the situation, seeing that, or recognizing that marketers' job is to make you feel like you don't have enough. And every time you step foot into a Target, we're going to have something new that you want. It helps you just kind of, again, get rational and realistic with yourself to say, like, I only have so much money that I'm making. Am I really going to be spending it in these ways, again, that just feel like, oh, I like that and I want that on my shelf? And I don't know. So removing myself and then helping myself set boundaries and perimeters of saying, like, if I really do like something, I'm going to wait a certain amount of time, 2 to 4 weeks before I make that decision, then I'll make the decision. But it was really like putting those boundaries into place. And I think that's helped me, I guess, steward money better. But stewarding the things, again, going back to that whole, like, you don't come into the world with anything, you don't leave with anything, just being a little bit more generous with my things. I feel like that I've always been, how do I say, I want to say, like, in certain ways, I've always been a hoarder. Just like, I want my stuff. Like, I like my stuff. I don't want you to touch my stuff. I was I didn't like to share. And so I would say God in general has been working on me through minimalism to be like, these things are just things. And again, kind of going back to the food, like, you can always have another slice tomorrow. It's like, I'm blessed enough to be able to buy, if I let go of something that is consuming me, I can always replace it tomorrow. And maybe that's not the best way to think, but like, not everyone has that ability to do that. But it's just like, hold on to things more loosely. They're not yours.
Well, it's a beautiful image. And I love that you ended with hold on to things more loosely, because I was already forming in my mind like this picture of sort of these tight-fisted people, gripping our things, and how God works on us to say things are just things, and let them go and share. And being a good steward is about caring for what you have and sharing what you have, right, with the world.
Even just with friendships, my friends are one of the most important things in my life. And to me, I'm like, I'm just not being a good friend to these people, that it's kind of like, oh, we're catching up about the weather these days. It's just, again, I'm not being the best friend I could be. So with those tiers, I didn't even really describe that. Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1, I wanted to see them at least weekly, if not bi-weekly. Tier 2 was like every 4 to 6 weeks. And then tier 3, it was just like people that I still loved and I wanted a relationship with, but it was like, we're just kind of like ships passing in the night, and we feel like we have to still touch base, but it's okay if we're not anymore. And again, people can move around in those tiers, but it was like, I'm just going to really put my focus on these people that seem to be in my season, in my realm right now, for whatever reason. That's where I'm going to put my energies and efforts. So in that way, I feel like you are kind of stewarding the bandwidth that you have for friends.
Tell me what it feels like when you've got all this intentionality. Like, what are the benefits that you see, that you feel in your emotions, that you feel in your home and your schedule? Because you talked about, I'm a better friend to the friends whom I'm prioritizing. What else?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people hear everything I'm saying. They're like, wow, that girl just thinks way too hard, or she's thinking too much. And it is second nature at this point. I mean, I've been doing this for, like I said, 14 years, like pretty much my entire marriage. It feels like I am taking control of my life. I understand that I only have so much control. But I think with decluttering the tangible things, it's like, no, I'm taking back control here because this is where I do have control. But again, with who I'm seeing, I have control over that. In regards to saying yes to certain things, yes or no, like, I don't always want to say yes to the pap smear, but it's like, I have to. I don't want to say yes to the mammogram, like those types of things, but it's like, you do that for your health. So again, you have control where you can, what you're saying yes to. And I just think that it makes me feel like life isn't guiding me as much as I'm guiding my life, but I also don't believe that at all. So that's why it's curious for me to say that. Like, I am also very comfortable with the pivot, but I think the reason I'm so comfortable with the pivot when it happens is because I've set myself up in streamlining certain areas that it's like, okay, that happened. Let's go here. Like, I know that these things I don't need to manage, that they're kind of like well-oiled.
To me, it makes sense that you're ready for the pivot because you're not grasping everything so tightly, right? So you're more able to turn away from, whether it's a plan in the calendar or whether it's a physical thing, you're able to say, that's okay. I can just let that go, which means it's easier to change, your trajectory for the day or for the week or whatever.
Yeah. I think as a Christian, it's like, I understand. I mean, this could be a really like deep philosophical, theological conversation, but like, I understand that I have free will to make choice, but also like, I kind of do wonder in what ways God directs, again, the steps or the people in my life. And so that's why it's like, with as much discernment and intention, I'm going to try and take control where I can.
Yeah. And let him guide you as well, which is a nice balance. We can kind of come back to that. Was this tricky at all to get your husband to buy in? And then I guess your kids have always been sort of raised like this, but do they ever push back and rebel against this idea?
I would say my husband was always on board with this lifestyle. I don't know. Sometimes I think it might be a generalization to say, but I do think men can kind of just get away with having fewer things. I don't know. For women, we always feel like we have to be dressed up or present ourselves in a certain way, and men can have a couple of suits and like wear them all the time. So
I just read that Michelle Obama said Barack Obama had one tuxedo for the entire 8 years of his presidency. And every event she went to, the press would talk about her bracelet and her earrings and her shoes. And
Yeah.
it always had to be different. You are not speaking in generalities. It's true.
Yeah. So I would say that he did come into the relationship with fewer things, but also I think out of necessity, we were talking about this when I just interviewed him, but we didn't have money when we first got married. Like we had nothing. I was working as a nanny and trying to graduate. We definitely were super intentional about budgeting and frugal. So out of necessity and just budgeting, it was, we were just had to be intentional. So maybe that's where he came into play for me that helped me kind of be a little bit more frugal and intentional. But again, of course, he didn't want me spending money in stores. Of course, this man that had worked so hard on getting his finances to a good place, like I think he was like, oh yeah, she's making changes. That's great. So I didn't have to necessarily convince him. I would say he does get frustrated with me when I declutter the things that I didn't ask about.
Oh,
And that has made some conflict in our relationship. However, the one thing that I've learned is he gets his spaces, and this can be the same with kids, going back to the kids conversation. He has his spaces that he can decorate the way that he wants, keep what he wants there. And to me, I think oftentimes minimalism can backfire just in our rebellious nature. It's like if someone tells me what to do, I'm probably not going to do it. And so I think for me, living by example, allowing each of us to have our space that's our own and to do with what we want there has been really helpful. And then kind of the community, more, I guess, collaborative spaces, he gives me more authority over because I'm running the household here for the most part. But it's like everyone has to be on board here. Like we don't want the toys overflowing into these areas because everyone's trying to exist here. And everyone takes part in cleaning when that ends up happening.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're so right about usually the women, the moms are like the household managers. And so we have a lot more space to fill, space to declutter, space to keep clean. But I'm so glad to hear that all your kids are involved. And I've noticed that you involve your kids in the kitchen as well. How does that play into the life you want them to live?
Yeah, I think that our goal as parents is just to raise up these self-sufficient, independent people one day. And man, that's hard, but I think when we can pull them in again in little ways, not biting off too much. Yeah, them just coming alongside. I'm thinking about my middle. He loves to get in the kitchen with me and he likes to brown the meat. He knows how to use this butcher knife, which I usually still watch him. He's 7. I still try and monitor, but he knows how to use it. Like he knows how to cut his apple. He knows how to cut whatever it is that he needs to. And I think that with intentionality, I guess I'll say, allowing them to, like, they can kind of navigate their risk too. Maybe not my youngest, but I think that when you hover too closely or like, don't do that. Oh my God. Like that makes them second guess themselves. And so I'm like, no, this is natural. If you feel kind of natural in this, I'm going to like be right behind you, but like, I'm going to allow you to step into something that feels right. It's the same with like climbing a tree. My kids have gotten pretty high in trees and it freaks me out. I can barely watch it, but it's like they know their bodies. I've always been kind of here to monitor them climbing, and they're not going to go higher than they feel comfortable. And I mean, that's played itself out with the various ages and how high they each get in the tree. So I don't know. I think just in the kitchen, allowing them, obviously you can't do it all times because I do, in order to run the ship here, like I have to stay on time sometimes. But I think as much as I can, I give them that authority and autonomy.
Well, of course, as a kids cooking teacher, I love hearing that you're letting your kids experiment and take risks. And I totally agree that knives are like climbing trees. And I wish more moms would be able to see that, it's all that letting go. It's the same image that we've been talking about as we're letting go of some of that control over our kids' safety, which we're not really in control of anyway. We can just guide and shape and direct. So what a beautiful way to look at that.
Well, you know what's helpful too? So with kids in the kitchen, my son, the same one, loves to whittle. It was something that happened in our nature group. So if you get like a basic beginner's whittling kit on Amazon, it does come with gloves. You still can cut yourself, and he knows how. We've taught him how. But yeah, he's gotten really comfortable with doing that, like away from his body. So I'm like, you know how to manage sharp tools. And he's been doing that for a few years. So giving him that ability and then coming into the kitchen where it's like, okay, we might not be using gloves, which they make those too. But I think that has made me more comfortable. Honestly, the thing that stresses me out the most about whittling is when he has whittled a stick into a spear wants to take, he's like, I'm going to take this to my room. And it's like, no, you're not. That is mine now. That's where I probably need to not be as micromanaging.
So he's using sharp tools to make sharp tools.
Yes.
He's
But
a boy, yeah.
They seem like sharper tools than what he starts with this knife. I'm like, that is a death trap for someone. So
your book is called Minimalist Moms, Living and Parenting with Simplicity. And as I was reading reviews and comments, people often say it's their favorite on minimalism, even people who have read many, many books on the topic. What do you think draws people to your ideas? Like, what's different about how you present things?
I would say with that book specifically, I tried to write it. Yes, it's from a beginner's standpoint. I just try to be authentic, I guess. I try to just share from my heart the things that have worked for me in small tidbits throughout that. And it's really digestible. Like, you don't have to sit down and read it from cover to cover, because it's written in 3 sections to what might benefit, I believe, your mind, the tangible decluttering, and then I want to say like time decluttering. To me, I'm like, this is more manageable. Kind of like take what you need and leave what doesn't work for you. But yeah, I just don't want, I don't have it all together. Like I said, I don't mind the whittling, but afterwards it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want you to die. Like, there's always like a yin and yang, and always a balance to be had here. So I'm just sharing what has worked for me. Yeah. Why would I not want to share that with people? Because it's overhauled my life. And
authenticity is very attractive. So no wonder that people are drawn to that, for sure.
I don't know how authentic I can be and be like, I'm so authentic. Gosh, it's like when you go to a job and it's like, what don't you do well? It's like, I just work too hard.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to say you're authentic. You just are authentic. It's just a state of being. Well, it's been fun hearing stories from your household. I love to leave moms and dads with a super practical step that they could accomplish right away, like some sort of quick win. So what do you want to have them do with this information?
Yeah, I think when I've helped people declutter in the past in their homes, we just kind of walk around and look for pain points. We assess pain points. So for someone, it was the laundry. And to me, I looked at her laundry and I was like, oh, you just have far too many clothes that you're trying to manage here. So pain point, entryway. It's like, well, I'm definitely not someone that thinks you need to run to the Container Store before you've decluttered. Some people like to organize their clutter, and you can't do that. But I think in the entryway, it's like, oh, we might just need some type of vertical storage here, or something to get the shoes off and away, whatever it is, because again, that's where you're like coming and going from. I love to start in the bathroom. That's another great place that you can start and have a quick, easy win. Pulling everything out with any decluttering process. You pull everything out, assess what you have, put back what you know that you love, and then again, see what you can live without for 30 days. I think that I always say you can live with less than you think and that you should. And I think everyone that's listening is capable of decluttering. Everyone knows that space that's a pain point, and that's what they should go do.
Mm-hmm. And a bathroom, of course, not very emotional, usually not very hard. And
yeah. And also usually the first place you start your day and end your day. So
true. Very good points. Well, I love that you're shifting your language from minimalism to intentionality. I think it's probably more authentic to you and what you're really doing. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's a gift to others, gift to our audience to hear that encouragement that you can do this and that there are so many benefits on the other side. So thank you for being here, Diane.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was great to connect again.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healthy Parenting Handbook podcast. I hope your brain feels fed and your heart feels full and that you feel connected, knowing that there are other parents on this journey with you. We're just trying to raise healthy, independent adults. And the next time you think, man, there is no handbook for this job. Now there is the Healthy Parenting Handbook. Look up the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please leave a review, my friends, as that helps other parents who need this information to find us. And of course, subscribe. That's a huge help. You can also look for our shorts as a reel on Instagram at Katie Kimball Kids Cook, or subscribe to the Healthy Parenting Handbook Shorts channel on YouTube. You'll get those bite-sized portions of healthy parenting advice.